Zhou Fan also felt uneasy. All right. But Mo, don't you think the pattern here looks similar to the one on your body when you were cultivating? Fu Jiu, seeing this, tried placing his hand on the pattern and channeled his energy. It indeed looks similar. Suddenly, purple light appeared in several places on the pattern, suddenly appearing in front of the three, surprising them. Then, a powerful air current erupted from the patterns. Xian Shishir immediately shouted, "Be careful." Mo Fujio didn't have time to react, and he looked in horror as the purple beam pierced through his arm. He froze immediately and blurted out, "What is that?" Zhou Fan quickly sensed that something was wrong and rushed over shouting, "Mo." Xian Shishir also hurried over. At that moment, Mo Fujio was caught by the purple force, and suddenly, the ground and rocks exploded due to the strange power of the purple light. Zhou Fan realized the situation was dire, filled with panic. Mo Fujio was now even more unstable, his eyes turning red. It was Xian Shishir who remained the calmest, decisively grabbing Fujio's clothes and saying, "This relic has a problem, we must leave quickly." The three of them quickly left the strange relic. Things seemed far from stabilized, and Fujio's arm was once again caught by that purple force. This made him scream in pain. Zhou Fan saw this and loudly comforted him, saying, "Ma brother, hold on." Xian Shishir gritted her teeth, afraid. Suddenly, that purple force seemed to be provoked, charging toward Zhou Fan and the others like lightning. Everything became even more chaotic, and the clothes Xian Shishir was holding onto were torn. Seeing this, Xian Shishir fearfully looked back. Zhou Fan, being pulled behind, watched helplessly as Fujio was dragged away by the purple force, screaming in desperation, "Ma brother! Ma brother!" His eyes turned wild. Fujio reached out trying to grab something, but he had already been consumed by the force. Only his hands were desperately struggling, emitting painful screams. The scene outside was filled only with dust flying in the air. Zhou Fan, nearly going mad with anxiety, continued shouting, "Ma brother! Ma brother!" Xian Shishir remained calm, holding him tightly. Zhou Fan still didn't care, shouting desperately, "Let go of me, he's still over there." Xian Shishir held him and advised, "We need to think of ourselves first. The owner of the relic has arrived." Upon hearing this, Zhou Fan's eyes widened in fear. Just then, two massive ships appeared above their heads. A threatening voice rang out, "Trinity Realm? You've really stepped into a big mess." Strange-looking beasts were flying nearby, accompanying the large ships. The ship with the giant sail. A terrifying monster, with the head of an octopus, its eyes full of rage, spat out unspeakable words. Zhou Fan, terrified, stepped forward and asked in panic, "Xian Shishir, what are they saying?" Xian Shishir, equally confused, responded, "I don't know, but it's definitely not good." Then, a terrifying monster extended a raised arm from a giant shell, pointing forward. Instantly, beams of light shot out at incredible speed. Xian Shishir, sensing the danger, said, "In addition to the Trinity Realm, there are some in the core formation realm, and more than two in the nascent soul realm. Those in the golden core realm don't count. Luckily, there's no one in the void refining realm." She quickly charged towards the huge monster with an enormous mouth filled with thousands of teeth, telling Zhou Fan, "I'll deal with these 3. Hold the others off as best you can." Zhou Fan replied in sync, "Understood." He immediately earned Xian Shishir's praise, "Well done." She didn't delay, immediately engaging in fierce combat with the monsters, severing the tail of one and splattering blood all over the ground. Using the momentum, she jumped up. Xian Shishir made a powerful leap, charging into the group of monsters waiting to attack. On the other side, Zhou Fan was also fighting with all his might. He struck several monsters, blood splattering, shouting, "Get away! Why are you still chasing me?" But he couldn't fight for long before a sharp vortex pierced his body, causing him to spit out blood. Above, a monster riding a large fish charged toward Zhou Fan with a storm-like attack. Although he had just been injured, he still stubbornly cursed, "That hole wasn't made by me." The monsters still didn't let the two of them off, cursing in a strange language as they surged toward them. Zhao Fan finally lost his temper completely, his face pale and his eyes bloodshot. You forced me. Then he shouted, activate body of dominance. Immediately, a huge sound exploded in the sky. In the monster's eyes, a figure appeared. Zhao Fan unleashed a powerful fiery attack. This was the soul-cutting magic-breaking fist, killing several monsters without giving them a chance to breathe, leaving only a few piles of white bones. The monsters below were stunned by the sight, mumbling in confusion. Zhao Fan didn't intend to stop. He charged forward, using the violent shattering demon sound palm to strike at the ship in front of him. Instantly, the ship was shattered to pieces, and the monsters aboard couldn't escape their fate. A huge explosion erupted in the sky. Seeing the scene before them, the monsters were so frightened they couldn't stand steady. Zhao Fan continued to fight, growing fiercer, grabbing a piece of debris as a foothold. At that moment, he seemed to sense something, his eyes turning pale, and he thought in terror, auras of the core formation. He watched as the monsters charged toward him to attack. He wasn't afraid, silently thinking, 5 core formation experts. Then he shouted at the monsters, so you really think so highly of me, a mere nascent soul. The monsters angrily charged at him, their roars shaking the heavens, and the others followed suit without exception. Then, suddenly, several red ropes flew toward his limbs, binding him so he couldn't move. One monster was pulling on the rope, forcefully wrapping him up. He was pulled with great force, his limbs twisting, and the others weren't spared either. Suddenly, Zhao Fan's eyes widened, surrounded by dripping blood. His limbs were gone, and he thought to himself, no. It's not over, the head is still there. In another scene, Hanju had completely mastered the 8th layer of the 6 Paths reincarnation skill. The doctrines of the 8th layer were extremely profound, involving many truths about yin and yang. He happily said, Master has learned a new divine ability. This ability is more useful for escaping than for combat. He happily conjured a door and pointed at it, saying, through this door, one can enter the cycle of reincarnation and travel through the 6 paths. If we can't win, we can send everyone to the underworld. The people below were scared and broke into a cold sweat. Tiandong said, the underworld. Are you joking? The black prison. Chicken asked, does the master mean the most dangerous place is the safest place? The crowd below was in an uproar, that's not the point. This is the underworld, a place we living beings can go? Senior brother, speak softly. Don't let the ancestor hear. This is too much. Too much. At this moment, Hanju noticed the system prompt, your divine pet, the Chaos Sky Dog, has been attacked by demon cultivators 1086 times. Your friend entered the ancient forbidden hall wearing the revenge armor, disturbed by an ominous force. Your friend Zhao Fan is being hunted by the 3 major sects. His essence blood exhausted, producing evil thoughts. Your friend Hong Quan is gaining insights into the Blessed Land's human path. He read these and thought to himself, ominous force, could it be the power of demon brother? Is it demonic magic? It seems outside is not easy for Zhao Fan. Amidst the thick smoke, Zhao Fan's fist dripped with blood. The arm he had raised earlier flashed with a red light, and the black smoke quickly dispersed. Zhao Fan entered the god transformation realm, his eyes blood-red, his gaze sharp as a blade, showing a terrifying appearance. Standing in the billowing smoke and fire, Zhao Fan firmly said, Demon brother, I will definitely save you. If it's not broken, it won't be established. Break it and rebuild. Zhao Fan ascended to the god transformation realm. The screen displayed the information, your divine pet, the Chaos Sky Dog, has been attacked by demon cultivators 1023 times. Your friend entered the ancient forbidden hall wearing the revenge armor. Hanju concluded, the comprehension has improved. It looks like Hong Quan's actions in the heavenly blessed land are not simple. Suddenly, he realized something was wrong. Wait, Suchi gave the misfortune to the ball demon. The system screen showed, the curse from your enemy, the absolute extinction Taoist, has been weakened by your misfortune, and the chance of encountering a heart demon has increased. He secretly laughed and couldn't help but praise. Indeed, it's the most mysterious and strange force of karma in the world. When meeting Su Qi, the ball demon is in for a loss. Tiandong loudly said, "Some people say the underworld really exists, but I don't believe it. Unless he can enter the underworld like Master's divine abilities. I think this thing should be true." Tiandong shouted, "So cool." Chang'an showed an unhappy expression and said, "Stop shouting, Master is about to speak." Hanju was retrieving the reincarnation gate. The black prison chicken, seeing this, wondered, "Didn't the Master call us here to see this door?" He smiled at it. "I called everyone here today because I'm going to give a lecture. If you have any questions about cultivation, feel free to ask." The black prison chicken widened its eyes at the mention of a lecture. Tiandong could hardly believe his ears, and Chang'an was thinking deeply about what Master just said. Rongqi looked at his master suspiciously. Even Fong Yang felt confused by Hanju's actions and words. The five of them began to whisper among themselves. The black prison chicken started doubting Hanju. Did the master take the wrong medicine? He actually wants to give a lecture. Chang'an felt somewhat strange. Did the sun rise from the west today? Rongqi still couldn't believe it and thought to himself, "No. This is too strange." Tiandong was also wondering, did he go crazy after crossing the tribulation? Fong Yang was the slowest to react and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with you all?" Seeing that his disciples didn't seem to believe he could give a lecture, Hanju explained, "Recently, my comprehension in cultivation has improved by a level, so I decided to take some time to answer your questions." "You're all fine." No one spoke, and the few immediately knelt on the ground. The black prison chicken was the first to speak. "Thank you, Master." The three of them said in unison, "Thank you, Master." "Thank you, Ancestor." Seeing their actions, Hanju fell into thought. Actually, after crossing the tribulation, cultivation growth slows down, so I have some free time. He closed his eyes, with faint spiritual energy flickering at his fingertips. Hanju raised his hand and began chanting the mantra, "Up." Fong Yang was surprised, his mouth wide open, not expecting that he would actually float up. Tiandong, playing around, suddenly saw Fong Yang floating in the air and shouted, "Is this how powerful a lecture is?" The black prison chicken lazily half opened its eyes and said, "Why am I suddenly so sleepy?" Listening to his lecture, unexpectedly, it sounded so pleasant, like a floating melody. Hanju thought to himself, "I'll start with swordsmanship. The sword is the king of all weapons, the most suitable weapon for cultivators." The melody flew over the hills and sand dunes, thinking, "What is a sword? What is the way of the sword?" The voice of the lecture seemed to travel across the ocean and reach the Yuqing sacred sect, still echoing, "It seems that the things of the lower realms are qi, while those of the upper realms are Tao. The tangible is the sword, the intangible is the Tao." The man in golden clothes glanced fearfully and then shouted, "What is happening here?" The monk, the long-haired man, and the elders of the Yuqing sect all focused on the trembling sword. Jioding, seeing the sword moving on its own, turned to ask a guest wearing a bamboo hat, "The sword is moving? Is this happening to everyone?" Jioding raised his hand and loudly shouted, "It's the great sword cultivator giving a lecture." He quickly sent someone to deliver the message, "Hurry, send the order for all disciples to come and cultivate." The disciples shouted in unison, "Yes." From sword cultivators to scholars, to the rats and families, and even those shameless people in the restroom. In the end, people from the lower realms sat together to listen to Hanju's lecture. He gently made a silence gesture. 7 days later, looking at the radiant aura, Jioding proudly spread his arms. "I've never seen so many disciples improve almost simultaneously. The future of Yuqing sect is promising." At this moment, the sound of training came from the bitter cultivation immortal mountain. Hanju's gaze passed through the demonic domain opened by the heartless flying sword. He stood in the rotating light, as if descending from the 9 heavens. Hanju raised his sword forward, the tip of the sword gleaming with light. "This is the broken sword." The main speaker swiftly struck to kill the enemy. He gripped the sword and dashed forward, his aura and sword energy immediately cutting through space as if a wall of dragons and emperors. The sword energy flashed, sharp and exceptional. This is the Ice Terror technique. The main speaker was unpredictable in battle. Hanju leaped into the air, releasing his internal force and sword energy together. Though the sword energy was fine, its power was immense. His gaze was ghostly, and Hanju continued using a thunder-like autumn fury. He swung his sword, the sword energy accompanied by a powerful aura. Hanju quickly released, this is the swift sword, used to defeat the enemy in one strike at the right moment, ending the battle swiftly. His legs lightly touched the ground. Finally, this is the sheathing of the sword. Swift as a cut, the sword was already sheathed. When sheathing the sword, the body and mind are not affected by battle, and reason is not disturbed by slaughter. Hanju coldly sheathed his sword, clean and decisive. A resolute person advances without retreat, and when withdrawing, one must not stir up great waves, just as the rivers and seas lie still. The light is clear like listening. Do you understand? They all understood the profound meaning. Chang'an joined his palms. I understand, junior brother. Rong. Qi crossed his arms, sighing. The ancestors' cultivation is truly profound. Fang Yang did not hold back praise. Amazing. Amazing. Only Tiandong looked strange, thinking to himself, I can't run around anymore. Listening to Master's lecture for 7 days is more beneficial than wandering outside for 100 years. Hanju's voice rang out, if you understand, go cultivate on your own. The surrounding voices echoed, yes, Master. Ancestor. We will never disappoint you. They kept their promise and threw themselves into cultivation. In the martial training ground, Chang'an practiced sword techniques. Fang Yang was too forceful, with sword energy spinning like a small tornado. Tiandong and Rong Qi were competing with each other. From the outside, Hanju thought, the task is heavy, and the road is long. Forget it. Relying on the spiritual energy from cultivation, everyone can cultivate with peace of mind. This is the immortal cultivation life I seek, without fighting or killing, and no deceit. Life is peaceful and beautiful. Lost in thought, the system's prompt sound brought him back to reality. The content on the screen appeared beside him. Hanju stared at the message in shock. Chang'an was punishing Tiandong and Rong Qi, both of their heads swelling with big bumps. The three were startled by a sound and all looked up toward the same direction. A terrifying force caused Hanju's bitter cultivation immortal mountain to shake, with leaves flying under the pressure, covering the ground. This force enveloped the entire Yuqing sacred sect. Jioding and the elders were so frightened by this force that they shouted, what happened? The pressure is too terrifying. One person spoke up, their voice still trembling, looking outside with confusion. It stopped. In the grand hall of the Yuqing sacred sect, everyone kept discussing what happened. One person loudly questioned, is it an enemy attack? But was contradicted by another, no, that's not it. Another person noticed, the phenomenon seems to be coming from bitter cultivation immortal mountain. Could it be the god-slaying elder? It must be. There's no other presence more terrifying than this in the entire sect. I heard the god-slaying elder has never released such a pressure. Yes. I always thought the god-slaying elder was quite elegant. Me too. I thought he was easy to talk to. Jioding stood quietly, watching as the oppressive force gradually disappeared. He was a bit worried, sweat continuously pouring from his head, and a thought flashed through his mind, that was close. Luckily it ended quickly. Jioding slowly thought, the fluctuation just now also contained destructive waves. Han Elder must be angry. I can't believe it. Han Elder has always been very calm because the bitter cultivation has long broken off from conflict, so he's hard to approach. Unless something happens to someone he cares about. In a crowded place, the celestial dog was bound with thick ropes, covered in wounds of all sizes. It seemed the people planned to use it as a sacrifice, shouting loudly, the auspicious moment is near. Use the divine beast's blood to awaken the demon emperor's spirit. A demon mage was dancing around the celestial dog. He spread his hands and shouted to the crowd below, "Are you ready to welcome the Demon Emperor's arrival? Welcome the Demon Emperor's arrival."